French President Emmanuel Macron is the first European leader to visit the White House since Trump's return. Macron tried to convince the US president to continue supporting Kyiv and to discuss the next steps in bringing an end to the Russia-Ukraine conflict that has had Eastern Europe on the edge since February 2022. Macron emphasized that Ukraine must be included in discussions to resolve the conflict and warned that any peace deal must not result in Ukraine's surrender.
We want peace. That peace cannot mean capitulation by Ukraine. That peace cannot be a ceasefire with no guarantees. That peace must include the conditions for Ukrainian sovereignty, allowing Ukraine to negotiate with all actors on the issues which concern it and for which it is the only party which can legitimately negotiate. But it's a peace for which we need to assume our responsibilities to maintain security and stability for Ukraine and for the whole region in the long term. And for we Europeans, that's an existential question.
Macron expressed optimism after his discussions with Trump, pointing out that there is a potential path forward. The French president stressed that the United States would need to offer security guarantees to Ukraine, particularly if European peacekeepers are deployed on the ground.
I think it's good to have discussion. I think it's useful to have negotiation. I think it's super important to go to the peace. But my strong point was to say, let's try to get something first which can be assessed, checked and verified. And let's be sure that we build sufficient guarantees on the short run. And this is where we are ready to be engaged. As for France, a lot of my European colleagues are ready to be engaged. But we do need this American backup because this is part of the credibility of the security guarantees. And this is our collective deterrence capacity.
Trump, for his part, hailed Macron as a very special man and suggested that a peace deal could be achieved in weeks, underlining his willingness to re-engage with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
It's time to end this bloodletting and restore peace, and I think we're going to do it. We've had some great conversations, including with Russia.
Trump claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin said that there is no problem with having European troops serving as peacekeepers in Ukraine whenever the conflict ends, while calling for Europe to take on more of the financial burden of supporting Ukraine.
I'm also pleased that President Macron agrees that the cost and burden of securing the peace must be borne by the nations of Europe, not alone by the United States. And Europe must take that central role in assuring long-term security of Ukraine, which they want to do. And that's not a very big step. The big step is what's going to happen over the next few weeks. We must have an agreement with Ukraine on critical minerals and rare earths and various other things as security. And I think that that's happening. I think we've made a lot of progress. I had a report just given to me before walking in that we've made, Emmanuel, a great deal of progress toward getting that.
World diplomacy is changing lanes and switching gears at a pace not witnessed in decades. In a remarkable moment during their talks at the Oval Office on Monday, Macron interrupted and corrected Trump after the US president claimed that Europe was simply lending money to Ukraine and would eventually get it back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear, we have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe. Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will have paid for that.
The discussions between Trump and Macron are part of a broader diplomatic push, but the world is watching closely to see whether this moment will mark a decisive shift in the global response to Ukraine conflict. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.